Hey everyone, today we're doing a speed ranking. I thought this time around I would make the experiment a little different and not make it so the characters had to traverse a set distance, instead just measure the fastest speed they could achieve. For this they could use anything available in their kit, including their power, their additional abilities, and finally their add-ons. Let's get started. The slowest movement speed character is technically a walking nurse, I believe. However, the more common slower speed is 4.4 meters per second characters. Therefore, the slowest character in the game, with no way to boost their movement beyond their base, are Deathslinger, who does have a few movement speed increasing add-ons. However, they increase things like ADS movement speed, which isn't faster than his base walk speed of 4.4 meters per second. The other character is Trickster, who again does have movement speed related add-ons, however only for movements that aren't faster than his base. Therefore, his base of 4.4 meters per second is the fastest he has. We then quickly jump up to the 4.6 meters per second characters, which is where the majority are. First off here, and one 4.4 character that can actually reach 4.6 is Huntress. Huntress has a base movement speed of 4.4 meters per second. However, this can be increased with the iridescent add-on Soldier's Putty, which allows her to move at 4.6 when out of hatchets. Maya's somewhat boringly can just move at a base of 4.6 when in tier 2 or above of his power. Plague's fastest movement is her base speed of 4.6, Ghostface's fastest movement is his base speed of 4.6. Freddy does have a teleport, but this isn't really a measurable speed, as it's instant. This means he can only actually move at the base speed of 4.6. Doctor has no additional abilities to increase speed, making his fastest 4.6. Pyramid Head has a very large kit, however his fastest movement is quite simply his base walk speed of 4.6. Artist simply has her base 4.6 as her fastest speed. Nemesis's fastest speed is his base walk speed of 4.6. Cenobite's fastest movement is just his base walk speed of 4.6. He does have his teleport, but again this is an instant action and therefore it doesn't really count as a calculable speed. One interesting thing though that I noticed whilst looking around the wiki is that the speed of his chain shot is actually up to 40 meters a second, with it taking a few seconds to reach this speed. I kind of want to count this. Although it isn't the character moving, it is still a speedy attack technically, which you do follow with your POV, so I kind of want to count it. Not sure. Let me know what you think of that. To me it kind of feels like including this would mean including Huntress's hatchet throw speed or something. Hag is next, and is interesting. Hag can traverse distances very quickly with her teleport, however again this doesn't really have a speed value tied to it, as it's an instant action, and technically not a movement, as she's teleporting. This means her fastest movement is achievable with her add-on the Waterlogged Shoe, which alters her movement to 4.73 meters per second. Trapper moves at a base of 4.6, however he can slightly increase his movement speed by 5% when using the add-on Coffee Grounds, which applies a 5% boost for 5 seconds after setting a trap, making his max speed 4.83 meters per second. If we include Trapper's PTB buff too, he does get a slightly higher placement. In the PTB he gets an additional base 7.5% speed after setting a trap. Therefore with Coffee Grounds, his movement speed increases by 12.5% up to 5.18 meters per second. Singularity moves at a base of 4.6 meters per second also, and can have this increased by his add-on Soma Family Photo. This provides a 5% extra boost to speed when teleporting with Slipstream. This makes his fastest 4.83 meters per second. Clown has his yellow bottles to allow a faster movement. He gains an additional 10% haste when walking through these, and unfortunately has no other add-ons that allow him to move at an increased speed. This results in a movement speed of 5.06 meters per second. Skull Merchant has a base movement of 4.6, but can get up to 7% extra speed when tracking all 4 survivors. Then there's 2 add-ons that apply extra haste. These add-ons are Prototype Rotor, which gives 5% when entering an active drone radius. Then there's also Geographical Readout, which gives 2% extra when in a drone's active radius. All in all, this means you can have up to 14% extra speed, which is 5.24 meters per second. Knight is an interesting case. He has a base of 4.6, however he can get a small bonus after placing a guard. When doing so, he gets a 5% boost to movement speeds, which makes the base 4.6 into 4.83. We can get an additional bit of speed though when using the lightweight Greaves add-on, which gives an extra 10% speed after placing the Jailer guard. This gives a total of 5.29 meters per second, or it could possibly be 5.06 if it doesn't add the 10% to the base 5. I'm not too sure actually, the wording isn't entirely clear in game. I'm pretty sure they stack. Bubba's fastest movement is during chainsaw sweeps, where he can achieve 5.29 meters per second. The beast's marks and knife scratches can increase this speed by 5% though, up to 5.55 meters per second. Legion's fastest speed is achievable by entering Feral Frenzy at 5.2 meters per second. This can be increased though for each consecutive survivor hit when in Frenzy up to 6 meters per second. With the add-on Mural Sketch, this can then be made into 6.4 meters per second. They can get a really considerable increase with this add-on and can move very fast when they reach that 4 stack. Twins debatably have 2 characters, so they could be split into 2 speeds. Charlotte's fastest speed is simply the base 4.6. Victor however has a base movement speed of 6 meters per second, which is the same as a max speed Feral Frenzy without add-ons. Victor can get an increased movement speed of 0.9 meters per second with the 2 add-ons Forest Stew and Madeline's Scarf. This makes his fastest 6.9 meters per second. Sadako's fastest speed happens just after she teleports, where she walks at 6.9 meters per second instead of her base of 4.6, although this is only very briefly. It's her post-projection movement speed, and is very valuable. It's worth mentioning around this point that all the prior characters can technically move at a faster speed. The lunge attack allows each to move at 6.9 meters per second very briefly, meaning technically all prior fall into this figure. I thought I'd give you a breakdown though and try to be more interesting, so I didn't mention that until now. But all before here can technically be considered on equal footing, with their fastest being 6.9 meters per second. Wraith is capable of moving at a nice round 6 meters per second when cloaked. However, this can be increased with his 2 add-ons, Windstorm Blood and White. These 2 add-ons add 9% and 7% extra movement speed when cloaked, providing a maximum speed of 6.96 meters per second. Pig's fastest speed is achievable with her Ambush. Her base speed is 6.9 meters per second. This speed, however, can be increased with her add-on Last Will, which increases the movement by 6%, making the total 7.31 meters per second. Oni can move at 7.82 meters per second when in Demon Dash. This can be increased with the add-ons Akito's Crutch and Kanai Anson Talisman for a total 21% increase to its speed. This gives him a total speed of 9.46 meters per second. Spirit's base phase speed is initially where she's fastest, with a speed of 7.04 meters per second. She can then use the add-ons Mother-Daughter Ring and Muddy Sports Day Cap to give an additional 35% movement speed in phase, or 9.5 meters per second. Billy is already very fast with his Chainsaw Sprint, coming in at 9.2 meters per second. This can be increased though with the add-ons Doom and Death Engravings. Together they increase the movement speed of his chainsaw by 35%, giving him a max speed of 12.42 meters per second. Nurse's fastest movement is quite simply her blink speed, which is 13.33 meters per second according to the wiki. She does have other things to increase speed, but nothing that exceeds this number. Blight is a very interesting case, as his rushes initially are already very fast at 9.2 meters per second. However, these can be increased even further with add-ons. The best 2 I believe are Adrenaline Vial, which provides a base 10% increase to rush speed, but also 2 extra rush tokens. The second add-on being Blighted Crow. This 10% from Vial makes its pairing with Blighted Crow even stronger. Crow increases your rush speed by 6% for each consecutive rush you do, stacking as you go. Vial alone bumps your speed over 10 already to 10.12 meters per second, with a total of 6 rushes that act as consecutive when rushing as Blight. This means you can get an additional 36% speed. Now, the way it appears on the wiki, it seems that it's the case that the Vial applies phase, and then the additional speed gained from the crow applies on top, rather than alongside it, which means you gain a total speed of 13.76 meters per second when at 6 stacks of crow. I wasn't aware it worked like that, but that's kind of crazy, allowing you to move faster than a nurse blink, and even a max spec billy saw. If it doesn't work like that, then the speed is still very high and would be 13.432 meters per second. Wesker's fastest movement is simply his virulent bound. There's no add-ons that can increase the speed of the bound, but even so, its movement speed is 14 meters per second, which is very fast. Xenomorph is capable of moving its fastest when traversing the tunnels, where it walks a bit faster and on all fours. When in its tunnels, it can move at 18 meters per second. That's the fastest it can reach. Demogorgon has a bunch of fast movements. One of its fastest movement speeds is its shred attack, which lets it move at a whopping 18.4 meters per second. However, it's actually faster when traversing the upside down. At base, this is 20 meters per second. With the add-ons Deer Lung and Rotten Green Tripe though, this is increased to 29 meters per second, which is very fast, increasing it by 45% in total. Dredge's fastest movement is its teleport, which comes in at 12 meters per second. However, Nightfall of course increases this, and quite substantially too, taking it from 12 up to 38 meters per second, which is insanely fast. Again, aside Pinhead's chain, but not sure if that counts. Here, Dredge moves at this speed, so in this case it is definitely fair game. Alright, well that's gonna do it. I do hope you enjoyed, and I hope a lot of my calculations were right. I did my best to cross-reference them with the wiki. I may have rounded them slightly differently here and there, but yeah, regardless, I hope you enjoyed. Be sure to let me know your thoughts down below. Thanks, and goodbye.